Hi, I'm Femi OK, back from holiday to bring you the bonus edition of The Stream. This show is what happens when you keep the guests after the live broadcast and take the filter off. Coming up, unpacking Haiti's terrible history of natural and man-made disasters, and 3 Paralympians and what it's like to compete as elite athletes with disabilities. But first, a warning. In the next few minutes, you may crack a smile or even laugh out loud. I love this network, but it is not known for comedy. Are you ready to go on this journey with me? You are about to experience Trey, who calls himself the liberal redneck. He's a comedian from Tennessee who relishes making fun of his fellow Southerners. Here he is talking about the coronavirus pandemic. Hey Trey, how you doing?
Well, the Confederacy of Dummies continues to hold the same people in this country hostage as the Delta variant rages out of control, all because they, like a poorly trained dog, will not take their medicine. I don't understand these people. Half of them still don't even believe the virus is real. They'll buy fully into that water into wine, no evidence, but then see multiple elderly neighbors die and think it's some kind of government cough gun conspiracy or whatever. And then the ones that do believe in it have somehow arrived at the conclusion that the most appropriate response to the Delta variant would be to send all the Mexicans back to their country. What the is going on? Listen, I got a little confession to make. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, been Antifa since at least '03, and in early 2020, I was skeptical of COVID too. I thought it'd be another SARS or swine flu situation, but here's the thing, I'm virus dumb. So shortly after that, when every smart person on earth started saying something different, I realized that maybe I was being an idiot.
Nope, not an idiot. The liberal redneck is a very clever way to deliver comedy and politics. I caught up with Trey recently on Instagram to talk about his distinctive style.
I've wanted to do stand-up comedy since I was a kid, since I was 12 years old, because I watched Chris Rock, Bigger and Blacker with my dad on HBO when it aired or whatever. And my dad was just losing his mind at the whole, like, daddy don't get nothing but the big piece of chicken, because my dad was a single father and everything. So my dad's just loving all this, and I remember watching it, and that was the first time I wanted to do it. So I spent all this time thinking about it before I ever actually even stepped foot on stage. And I used to always think, I got really into stand-up and watching stand-up and everything. And I remember being pretty aware immediately that there wasn't really anybody. There were redneck comedians, you know, who were ultra popular. And I mean, honestly, I loved them too, but they weren't like me. Yeah, right. And even as a kid, I was like, there are people that sound like me, but not people that say the things that I think. And then there are people who say the things that I think, but they don't at all sound like me. And I remember like noticing that even way back then. So I kind of knew that it would be
you found your niche.
Different. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I just steered right into that because it all comes from a very organic place. You know, like I was the smart kid in my school, which also meant like the weirdo, you know, got made fun of for books are gay, that whole thing. That was always fun. They like to read, which is weird. Yeah. But not, you know, at the same time, they wanted to cheat off my math homework, so it wasn't too bad. It's a balance. But I'm saying I was always like, I never really fit in because of the way that I am. So it comes from a very authentic place, you know. It wasn't anything I had to conjure up in a lab anywhere or nothing.
You do a lot of yelling in your comedy. Yeah. Like a lot of yelling. Like a lot.
Yeah, well, you know, louder is funnier. Everybody knows that. That's just...
What's making you yell right now, Trey? What's really like doing your head in?
I mean, it's, you know, just all these Republican governors are seem hell-bent on getting the maximum amount of their people killed for no reason. Just the Delta variant and everything. I really thought once the vaccines came out and some restrictions started lifting and things like that, and again, we got some tour dates on the books and whatnot, I thought that like we could start going back to a semblance of normal, but then the Delta variant comes through like a Mack truck. Like, who do you think you are? This is 2021. We don't play that game around here. But just it kills me and it makes me very upset because of how unnecessary it seems to me like it is. Like it doesn't. Yeah, I know that everything's terrible and we just take for granted that things are terrible now, but like this thing in particular doesn't have to be as bad as this. There's plenty of things that could be done in a lot of places that just aren't in the name of freedom or whatever. Plus, I have 2 sons that are 8 and 9, and they go to school in Southern California, so it's not like as bad, but I watch this stuff at these like school board meetings with people screaming at doctors because they want to put a mask on there to protect their child, and they're threatening the doctors' lives and stuff. That is in my home state of Tennessee. And I watch that, and it makes me want to just pull my hair out, and because there's just no excuse for that type of thing as far as I'm concerned. And so, I mean, you know, that's been the same thing that's making a lot of people mad, I guess, right now, has been the thing that's been upsetting me the most.
As a Southerner, what is it about the South, do you think, that encourages people to view Southerners in a certain way? You've got the inside skinny on this. What do you think it is?
I mean, probably all the dumb we do all the time and say, just our general actions and yeah, you know, just the sum total of our history, probably, I would say, is like got a lot to do with it. It's because, in sincerity, I think a big part of it, I don't know, some of it I don't really understand why, but just for an example, like when people think of a Southerner, they think of the same thing always. Meaning, like, you know, somebody like, you know, an old boy that looks like me but without the glasses and sounds like me but is, you know, holding up an anti-abortion sign or whatever outside of a, you know, a clinic, just screaming about freedom with an eagle shirt on. That's who they picture. But, like, I feel like people don't think of, like, Outcast or whatever when they think of the South. You know what I mean? Like, there's more black people live in the South than any other region in the country, but like they don't get thought about when people think of like what the South is like. And also the white people like me who aren't like that get discounted too when people take into consideration what the South is like. And for us, I think a large part of it is because people who don't want to be viewed as being that way usually lose the accent and stuff and sort of act differently. Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, people. Yeah, because it's like I don't want people to think that I'm a racist dumb or whatever. And of course, I don't either. I don't want anybody to think that either. But my thing was always, but I'm not, and the fact that I sound this way doesn't make it so. So I just didn't buy into that. But I'm saying, you know, people that talk sense from the South. Usually, oftentimes, not always, obviously I'm exception to the rule, they don't sound like that. You know, and then anytime you hear somebody that sounds like that, again, other than me and a few others, they're always saying the same regressive bullshit over and over, you know what I mean? So, like, you can understand how people get that idea about us.
It builds on a stereotype for sure. Ash of Fanders says, have you experienced any backlash from stereotypical Southerners because of your views and success? Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I haven't had anybody try to like give me what for in a Family Dollar parking lot when I'm back home or anything like that. Like no physical altercations. I don't know if it's because I'm bigger than I look on the internet or whatever, but or if they, you know, don't recognize me with sleeves on my shirt. I don't know what the reason is, but either way, I haven't had anyone like try to start something with me in my face in public, like back in the South. But if you're talking about, I very much exist at a internet comment level of hatred, you know, like that. Very much they hate me enough to sit on the comment section and, you know, call me gay or whatever from their basement, but not enough to like leave the house and come find me and call me gay in my face, you know, like they don't hate me quite that much yet. I guess it's mostly resigned to the internet. It'll come. Yeah, one of these days. But I mean, I from the very beginning, 5 years ago, and still now, I very regularly will get messages from people, you know, and just calling me a blood trader, basically. It's, you know, you're selling us all out, or saying that I'm making it. You ain't. I know you're not a real Southerner because you can't be because of the way you are. So stop everybody, like that type of thing. I get stuff like that all the time. It really doesn't sit well with a lot of people. And there's some people I know personally who, like, you know, I would have thought we were cool and we are no longer cool, like people that I grew up with and stuff. But not most of them. Most of my buddies I grew up with, we still, you know, we've kept it together. But I'm saying some guys washed their hands of me immediately as soon as all this came out.
They see themselves in your comedy and that insults.
Yeah. And they're not wrong either. About that. You know, like when I'm doing a particular Dumbo Boy voice and with the Dumbo Boy opinion to go with it.
Are you drawing from real life then?
Yeah, right. Yeah. People see that and make some inferences about the inspiration of it. You know, they might be correct. So hard to blame them for being upset.
Do you think you've changed hearts and minds at all? Okay.
Yeah, but probably not in the way you're asking. Although maybe that's what you have in mind. But
tell me how you feel you've changed people. Then.
Okay, more classic rednecks, you know, more stereotypical rednecks.
Yeah.
How many have I heard from of them who are like, oh, you know what? I don't mess with the flag, the Confederate flag anymore, or whatever, like that type of thing. Has that happened? Yes. How many times? A handful. Not that many. Like that has not happened to me that often. Sometimes I hear secondhand stories from people at my shows. My father-in-law started a video and it kind of whatever. I've heard things like that. But how many times have I been told by people from elsewhere, from outside the South, that like my videos, whatever, like changed the way they looked at the South in general and made them realize that, oh, I thought you're like seeing a unicorn. I didn't know people like you existed. I thought the South was just one thing and now I realize it wasn't. I've been told that a million times, and that means a whole lot to me too.
Trey Crowder there, the liberal redneck. You can see more of his comedy on Instagram at official Trey Crowder. The Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games are underway. On the opening day, the stream was joined by 3 Paralympians. After the live broadcast, we got super candid about the challenges of competing at the Paralympics. Carlos Rios Espinoza from Human Rights Watch got that conversation started.
The Paralympics are starting today, but not all those Paralympians who should be in the event are there. Unfortunately, many Paralympic national committees are not providing reasonable accommodation and accessible conditions for everyone to go to the Games. This needs to change. There needs to be a transparent procedure to determine when a Paralympian is eligible to have a personal supporter.
So I'm looking at this headline. This made news a little while ago. This deafblind Paralympian was told to navigate Tokyo alone, so she quit Team USA. This seems like some huge dissonance going on here. Linda, you start.
Yes. So I think what we need to start looking at is that, you know, the law talks about, and I'm talking again about U.S. law, talks about reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities. But I think what we're really talking about here is tools to facilitate performance, right? And that's a different question. And she simply needed a tool to facilitate her performance, which was personal support to navigate the flight and, you know, getting around Tokyo. And so I think we need to reframe this question, and instead of looking at what the athletes need to perform as special, reasonable, different, whatever, we need to look at it as a tool that facilitates elite sport performance and figure out how we can provide that.
Mm-hmm. Anne is making notes. Sam is going to say something while Anne finishes her notes.
Yeah. What's happened? What's happened there? It's like asking Dak to step onto the field without his helmet. It's exactly the same thing. It's like Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, go play quarterback. No helmet though, no pads. You got to take on the rush absolutely naked. It's disgusting. I can't even imagine. It's like a pair of spikes to a sprinter. It's basic that it's a piece of assistive equipment. It's essential to an athlete's performance. I've really struggled to understand how that's come from the IPC or an NPC. That sort of thing really should not be happening. You've got no comment from me other than just outrage.
Yeah, what the? But this is the Paralympic Committee who agreed to this, and this is because they wanted to reduce the footprint of people in Tokyo because of COVID-19. And when you hear that, yeah, I know you know that, what is your response?
You know, I read that story and, you know, I was saddened because how do you send a builder and, you know, to construct a building and take away his or her tools? You know, that is just one question that kept ringing in my mind. How would you expect someone to, to prepare in a certain way, then get to the start line and take away all those things that were, her support, to enable her to perform, at her. It's really, it's just sad. And to be honest, I'm always so frank. I think the people who were involved, the people who didn't look into this, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should be totally ashamed of themselves.
Unfortunately, it's only a very, very small drop in the ocean of what happens to a person with disability probably every single day. There's no end of tweets that I see from friends that wanted to get onto trains or want to leave trains or on a day out with friends, and they get stuck on a train because people say, I don't want to have to get the ramp out again from the person in the wheelchair. It's attitudes like that are very, very commonplace. So frankly, it doesn't surprise me. It's a shame.
And that's right. I think it's when we look at things through this lens of special or different, instead of facilitating equity, equality, equal access, right, then that's when, you become this other, and it's, it costs too much money, it takes too much time, it's a very special way. Instead of saying, we're all on this planet, we all have a right to be here, let's facilitate making that as comfortable and safe for everyone as we can. And, I don't have the answer how to make that happen, but I think we have to shift the way that we think about it and recognize that, we, the 15, are part of global society. We're not separate and apart. We are part of humanity and need to be part of humanity. And maybe it takes a different resource than somebody who doesn't have a disability for me or Sam or Ann to be included. But let's provide that.
Yeah, do you know what frustrates me is the fact that, people with disabilities constantly have to keep begging and validating their existence. And, you would sort of never find in an Olympic village, for example, where somebody has been told, don't bring this or don't bring your spikes or, this and that. No. So why is it happening to the disabled person or the disabled athlete? It is because disability is always an afterthought.
Anne Wafula, Strike, Sam Ruddock and Linda Mast-Andrea, bringing the Paralympic spirit to the stream. Thank you. Finally, to Haiti, where Haitians are recovering from a major earthquake this month, followed by a tropical storm, and the assassination of their president last month. Will Haiti ever catch a break? In a post-show discussion, guests John Holman, Nadesha Majoba and Dr. Inabert Pierre tackled a question that people in Haiti often talk about.
Like every Haitian, yes, I've wondered about this, and I think it probably has to do with many reasons, but one of the main reasons is bad leadership, as you pointed out, and bad leadership has caused the vulnerability of this country and vulnerability to the natural disasters. For example, hurricanes. Sometimes, the hurricanes are not really strong, devastating, but because of the vulnerability of the population, so it would cause a lot of problems. And earthquake also, we've seen major earthquake happening elsewhere, but not causing that much devastation. But I think it's because bad leadership and some correlated issues like corruption has made the country more vulnerable to natural disasters.
John, it's not very journalistic, but I mean, it is a real conversation that's worth having. Have you ever thought about, hold on a minute, Haiti's in the news again? Or an assassination? Where did all the money go from, where did the billions of dollars go for rebuilding Haiti? How can you misplace billions of dollars? What is your analysis?
That's a really difficult one, though. I think there's even been books written about that. Where did all the money go? Especially, I think in 2012, 2 years after the earthquake in 2010, there was a big investigation, that the other guests on the panel are going to know a lot more about than I am. And it was concluded that a lot of money went missing. And I think Dr. Norbert touched on it a bit at the start. So, saying that a lot of NGOs that came, or it's hard to say, if it was a lot or a few, but a lot didn't use that money responsibly and it all went missing. There is also, I think, a real difficulty, and I think you were touching on this as well, and Nadesha as well. Like, there's a lot of positive stuff that we've just seen on the ground that NGOs are doing, or just aid agencies from around the world, especially right in the aftermath of the disaster. They're really trying their best. They've got so many dedicated people that have come in. I think there's also a difficulty for them in trying to link up with the government, either at local or at top level, because, and I think that was also one of the problems with the earthquake aid that came in the first place. Okay, so you should partner with local authorities. You can't just, go in and do something just because I want to.
Yeah.
And then, but you're also dealing with a country with quite a high level of corruption among those authorities, and there's money that goes missing there. And I can imagine that being pretty frustrating when you're trying to do the right thing. You're just seeing it disappear, and you know that perhaps as an NGO you're going to get blamed at the end of it. So it's sort of that's something that I think Nadesh and Norbert are going to know a lot more about than I am, obviously.
The Haitians are very strong, resilient, incredible people in the context of all these things. The situation in Haiti is very complex. The Haitian culture is a beautiful culture, but it's also a very complex culture with incredible history. So it's going all the way back to its revolution. Think about that. They changed the economic system of the time, slavery, and some of that still is following Haiti. The centralization of decisions in the country. A lot of the decisions are made at the central level, which is in Port-au-Prince. So oftentimes the voice of the people is not part of those decisions. Haiti as a country is very different. You can't talk about the people in the north being similar to those in the south, culturally, socially, economically, politically. They're very different, all these areas. So the decisions oftentimes when the intervention comes in from the international community, well, good intentions, and there is no question about that whatsoever, and that is not what I'm questioning. It cannot be a cookie cutter approach, for lack of better words. I want to go back again. We need to start working with those on the grounds to reinforce their capacity to be ready for the next disaster. But what happens is, as it was explained before, the funds or the aid or the tarps or the food or whatever goes to those organizations that don't have a real presence on the ground, but have the big or perceived big capacity to be able to manage this large, aid or large pockets of money, etc. But then you're leaving those that are on the ground as vulnerable as you found them to respond to the next disaster. Yeah. And I have to say, the first responders to any disaster are those of us that are on the ground experiencing the earthquake or the hurricane or the civil unrest or whatever, whether it's man-made or whether it's a natural disaster, ready to respond. So I know, the people in CAI, the doctors and nurses, all the volunteers, all the good people over there, were the first responders to the needs of the people. The same thing in Jeremy, the same thing in all the little areas, people helping people. But yet, after every disaster, I will tell you this, in Jeremy, we still have homeless people from the earthquake 2010, from Hurricane Matthew 2016, and now let's add to that the most recent earthquake. So that shows you where the process of the recovery, what happens with all of that. So I want to go back to the accountability. There has to be a level of accountability of those that are coming into the country claiming that they're doing something for the people in the country.
Our coverage of Haiti in all of its complexity continues on Al Jazeera. Be sure to follow John Holman's reports for the latest from the Caribbean nation. Thanks for watching today. See you next time.